High-speed rail real estate development. By far the largest market in the world is the residential market for real estate, housing. For most people, their home is the largest purchase that they will make in their lives. 40 years ago, the value of residential real estate on the market in China was zero. Today, the Chinese residential real estate market, valued at about US dollars 47 trillion, is the number one market in the world. Slightly larger than the US real estate market and much larger than either the Chinese or the US stock markets. Real estate in China is the largest asset class of Chinese citizens and the largest factor in the increasing inequality among Chinese citizens. As elsewhere in the world, real estate is largely debt financed. During the planned economy years prior to the 1980s, Chinese rural land was collectively owned by the communes. Urban land was owned by the state and controlled by industrial, commercial, and government units. Although rural communes are no more, rural land is still collectively owned. Each registered rural resident has claim to land but cannot sell that claim. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China down to today, there has been no open market in real estate in the countryside. Urban land, however, has become a dominant part of China's market economy. It happened in stages. First, employees of urban work units who had their residences supplied as part of their employment packages were allowed to purchase at deep discounts restricted property rights. Then local governments and individuals were allowed to sell their land use rights under certain conditions. Each city was divided into land use zones, industrial, commercial, and residential. Different land use rights of differing durations were bought and sold in increasingly free markets. The discounted purchase system was then abolished, and bank real estate mortgage lending was introduced to finance increasingly expensive real estate purchases. Local governments have limited authority to tax, but face rising budgetary demands. For them, land conversion and sales became one of the largest, if not the largest, sources of income. Private real estate development boomed. During the years of the reform and opening up, the percentage of China's population in cities doubled from 30% to 60%. Chinese cities expanded their boundaries, acquiring formerly rural areas, and the money flowed into city coffers as property prices rose to among the highest in the world. Real estate innovation is part of the high-speed rail story. The high-speed rail project involved the construction of hundreds of new stations. Each of the newly built high-speed rail stations is itself a major real estate development. Each station was a node, tying the surrounding area into a renewed rail grid. Some high-speed rail stations were in the former city centers, but many of them formed centers of new towns in formerly agricultural land on the periphery of cities. The high-speed rail links raised the values of land surrounding the stations, facilitating successful development. The worldwide economy's plunge into the global financial crisis was good luck for China's real estate and infrastructural boom in general, and for HSR in particular. To avoid the Western recession, China embarked on massive fiscal stimulus. High-speed rail was the largest single beneficiary in China. High-speed rail itself was never a money-making proposition, but high-speed rail was part of the infrastructure to knit the country together, increasing efficiency of transportation. Where did China get the money to finance it? A major source of financing for the new high-speed rail lines was found in new joint ventures between domestic central government state-owned enterprises under the Ministry of Railways, now reorganized as the state-owned enterprise Yangtze China Rail, and domestic local state-owned enterprises of provinces, directly controlled cities, and self-governing regions that make up the next level of authority after the central government. To be part of the vision for the future of China, local governments vied to join HSR. They came not only because it was the right thing to do, but also because high-speed rail interconnectedness offered stimulation to local economies and especially to local real estate. As of the end of 2008, the Ministry of Railways and its state-owned enterprises had signed a total of 210 domestic joint venture agreements with provinces, cities, and self-governing regions and their state-owned enterprises for a total investment of renminbi 5 trillion, of which renminbi 1.6 trillion came from the local governments. State-owned enterprises contributed equity, high-speed rail lines issued debt. Some equity was listed on domestic stock markets, and additional sources of capital came from domestic and foreign private and institutional capital, but mainly it was debt. You can see part of that debt burden today in the current financial statements of China Rail. At market rates of interest, it would be a challenge for China Rail to service its debt from operating income. But part of the debt burden must also be on the balance sheets of local state-owned enterprises of provinces, cities, and self-governing regions. These debt burdens are structural characteristics of China's economy today. These debt securities, together with the bonds issued by property developers and the mortgage loans of hundreds of millions of homeowners and enterprises, are the bills for the massive 40-year-long construction boom that has changed the face of modern China.